Right, in this quick video, I'm going to demo the ins and outs, the fundies of Google Forms. So Google Forms happens to be a very popular tool amongst teachers, not just for quizzing students, really. It's also about gathering information about your students, parents, community, etc. So it has all sorts of applications, from getting to know your students to collecting information on, say, a t-shirt order, or seeing if they read Chapter 8 of The Great Gatsby. So today we're going to cover just some basic functions of Google Forms. I'm actually going to use a document from Global GEG. This would be from Bonnie and Luis, just going over the different types of questions and what they might look like in Google Forms. It's pretty handy. So first, let's just talk about how to access Google Forms. Now, I had just typed in the Omnibox forms.google.com, but you can also get to it by going to Google Drive, which is what I recommend to a lot of new teachers or people that are just trying to develop that habit of accessing Google Workspace tools. Because if you go to Google Drive and you click on the new button, you'll see here that you can access a whole host of Google Workspace tools, and notice that indeed Google Forms is one of them. So when you click that, that would bring you to this. Now, of course, you can use items from the template gallery if you're curious. I don't, only because I end up customizing the template so much, I might as well just made it from scratch. But I would encourage you to explore the template gallery to see if there's something in there that you could use. I'm going to work from a blank document. And so the very first thing I tend to do, because I'm always afraid I'm going to forget about this, is I click on the settings gear and turn off or leave it on, just so you're aware that this is a thing. If you're in a Google, a school domain, you do need to pay attention to this. Are you restricting users to just your domain, or should people outside of your school be able to answer or respond to the form? So if I'm doing this for class, I definitely leave it restricted. But if I'm sending this out to the community or to people that I don't know if they have a Google account within my school domain, I need to turn that off. So it kind of depends. It's something I'm going to mention right away, just because it does impact who can actually take your form or complete your form. So the first thing I'm going to do is name my form. Now, I'm going to call this test form. I don't have a great idea right now. And notice it does not rename the file name. So in your Google Drive, you might have a ton of untitled forms stacked up if you never actually rename them. So I always click up here to automatically rename it the title of my form. So then I normally would write out a pretty detailed description on what I want my users to do. And now it's time to ask my questions. So you can do this a whole host of ways. Let's go back and look at Global GEG's, Luis and Bonnie's. This is a Google form they made where they gave a visual of every type of question that you could ask. So I just want to show you these. And then we'll go back to our sample form to look at. So our multiple choice questions are just as you would expect. We can include pictures or just verbal, like text, I should say, responses. And then our check boxes would be all, like this would be equivalent to check all that apply, right? You want multiple things to possibly be checked. A drop down arrow or drop down choice allows us, this would be most useful if you had a long list of things and you don't want them to take up a ridiculous multiple choice. It would be a huge question. The drop down compacts the choices. I use this one, for example, when I'm having you select what is your major. There's 20 some majors. Drop down makes the most sense. Short answer, self-explanatory, paragraph text, a little bit longer. File upload, this is one of my favorites. If I want students to upload a picture, for example, or a screenshot of something as evidence, I can certainly do that. I have used this before when we did in the public school scholarship applications over Google Forms. I needed students to upload their letters of recommendation as PDFs, so they could do that through this file upload choice. Linear scale, a scale of 1 to whatever. I don't like that they're not defined very well. You would almost have to include a picture above to explain, say, the difference between a 4 and a 7. Multiple choice grid, tick box grid, very, very handy as well. Same thing with adding images that aren't tied to questions, like maybe you have an image and the next 5 questions correspond with that image, like labeling something. And of course, you can insert a video. I want to get into my test Google form and add some question types. So here I am. I'm going to click on the plus sign on the right-hand side and add a question. And so from here now, we have the ability to select from a drop-down a host of question types, all of which I just covered from Bonnie and Luis's sample Google form. And so I tend to ask for your first and last name. So I'm going to click short answer and type, what is your first name? And then I'm going to click this plus sign again, but this time I'm not going to flip it over to multiple or to short answer. I want you to see what happens. What is your last name? And Google automatically flipped that over to a short answer. It will try to detect either the question type or possible responses. And I also keep my first and last name separate so I can sort by last name in the spreadsheet of results. And so that's typically what I ask first. Some teachers don't do that because they have email collection turned on. Yeah, I could do that. That's not a big deal. I'll go ahead and check that. And I want mine restricted to just the university. Definitely be careful with that one if you want people outside of your school district to answer this survey. And so I'm going to go ahead and click save. I still ask first and last name though, because our emails, the way they're structured, it's kind of hard to figure out what student answered that based on their email address because we do the first letters of the first name, first couple of the last name, and it kind of gets confusing. So I'm just better off to ask for your first and last name. And so I'm going to click add a question again, or I can start to be thinking about also what are some other options I have. Yes, I can continue to ask questions. So multiple choice, checkbox, drop down, etc. But I also want you to notice this. I'm going to first trash this question here. I can also ask for, let's say, a password. So I'm going to add a question, and I'm going to have this be a short answer. And my question is, what is the password for this quiz? And then what I'm going to do is add response validation. So response validation means it has to fit a certain format. And so I want my number to equal to a certain number. And so I'm going to say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then I'll put in my custom error text to be ask your teacher for the password. That's code, I guess, in my case. Okay. And then I definitely need to make that a required question. Otherwise, the students would be able to just skip it and move on. So slide that over to required. And now we know that they have to pump in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 to be able to move on to the next section. So then I don't want them to see the questions after. I need to make a new section. So I'm going to add a new section. So when you add a new section, this is creating a page. And the very cool part is depending on certain answers, you can have them jump to different sections. So I'm going to add a few sections here. I've got 3 sections and I can title them all. So maybe my first section is going to be character questions. My next section might be timeline plot questions. And third section, literary device questions. Okay, so now I'll section my questions up accordingly. And so if they get this section right, they're going to continue on to the next section. That is correct. I have also had some students do, they might do a multiple choice. So I'm going to add in another section here or another question, and they'll do multiple choice. And so they'll pump in a question like, how do you feel today? Or how well are you understanding the reading? Question mark. And notice Google thought I wanted a linear scale, and I don't. I want multiple choice. And so I can add in question answers or choices, I should say. And check this out. I am able to go to sections based on an answer. So notice I have 4 sections here. I can have students say that they read it, but they're not sure what they read. They're really strong. They need a little help. And based on how they answered, they might go to a certain set of questions. I have had students in the past really get into that one when they're doing like social emotional, how are you feeling type of questions. And so next I'm going to go into how do you arrange these question sections to work for you? So let's go back and keep tweaking this Google form, just exploring the different options that you have. I'm actually going to scroll past the password section and onto section 2, essentially page 2. And we're going to click on add a question just so we can explore these question types again. So remember, you have a whole host of question types. I would encourage you to go back to Bonnie and Luis's Google Form sample for some inspiration, or just try to click on them all and see what happens. So I'm going to take multiple choice. And my question, I'm assuming this is on The Great Gatsby. What is Jordan's occupation? Question mark. And Google flipped it from short answer back to multiple choice. So I'm going to say she works in an office. She is a professional golfer. And obviously, I would put more choices than just 2. And so that's going to come into play later. I'm going to slide this to make sure it's a required question, and then move on to my next set. So I can continue asking questions about characters, right? Making sure I've got this section just on this page. I can also shuffle option order. So that would shuffle these particular choices, which is pretty handy. And later on, you'll also be able to shuffle question order, but I would definitely caution you on that because it does shuffle in ways that you might not have intended. So I'm going to go down to the plot here, and I'm going to add in an image this time. So I'm going to click Add Image, and we could add images all sorts of ways. My least favorite is to add by URL, because if the URL changes, then I'm going to lose access to this picture. Instead, I'm going to upload the picture directly. So I'm going to grab a map here of where folks lived in the book The Great Gatsby. And so here you can see it's added a map. And now I can add a question based on that map. So I could say, where did Tom and Daisy live? Daisy live. There we go. Question mark. And let's do short answer. There we go. And so I'm going to slide that required. So they have to answer it to move on. And then I could keep asking more questions. Where did Nick live? And this is a little bit easy for me because my map is somewhat labeled already. All right. And either I would probably have to add in this particular map, I might have to reference should the students be saying the location or these numbers? That definitely is probably something I would add into my question afterwards. Like I might write label or state the location, not number, or whatever I want to say. So I'm going to make this required again. And then maybe I want to come back up to, I don't know, I should have a section in here for historical context. Historical context questions. And notice that it dumped my section. I don't really want it there. So it'd be sure nice to be able to move that. Let's do that right here. Oop, not that. I want to move this. There we go. Move section. And I want this to go last. So I'm going to have historical context be after. There we go. I like that better. And so I'm going to go down to historical context. So what if I want to put in a YouTube video? So I'm going to add another question. And first I want to add my video. And so I've got my URL. I'm going to go over to YouTube here, and I've already got the link. And notice here, I want to add something in. If your video is too long for some reason and you click share, you can have it start at a certain point if you want. Like this video is way too long for my kids to watch. I might fast forward it to a certain section, hit share, and have it start at a certain point, and notice it changed the URL. Very handy. In this case, I'm not going to mess with that. I'm just going to have it go right from the beginning. And I'm going to grab the link here. I'm going to click share, copy the link, come back to my form, drop in the URL, hit select, and there we go. And then I need to move this video above the question. And so then I'm going to ask a series of questions based on this video. Some pretty cool responses there. Now let's talk about how to format this to look a certain way. So after we play around with the question types and how we might structure our data collection tool, we now can go in and play with how it looks. So I'm going to click on the artist palette and customize that theme. So we can include a header, and we can click choose an image and play around with what might be already provided in Google. Of course, we can upload something as well. I'm just going to go ahead and grab anything to change that color. So remember here, if you notice, my theme currently is kind of a lavender by default. Once you upload that image, notice that the palette changes as well. So Google lets you pick from a limited theme. Yeah, you can go in and change the color drastically. I would be careful with that. Remember, we're trying to establish a palette with your designs, right? Something that is easy to read. So we can change the background a little bit. The font style here, we can add in three, I believe, four different types of fonts. I would definitely remember Google is trying to keep you from making your content not accessible to all learners. We have that responsibility. And so I would definitely pick either basic, formal, or playful. Decorative, I think, is a very odd choice that I would not pick. So I'm going to go back to just basic. I just want this to be very easy to read. The last thing I want is the design of my assessment or data collection to get in the way of anyone actually completing it. So I've picked my theme. I've done a little bit of adjusting to make it look how I want. Some other things that you can pay attention to in your once you get the hang of this, you can also explore third-party add-ons. So add-ons would be something you would get by clicking the three dots, and you would go down here to add-ons and be able to shop basically in the marketplace. So a very popular add-on that I like is the form notifications, that every time someone completes this form, I get notified. Now, as a teacher using this for quizzes, I don't want that. That would be very annoying. But if I'm having somebody fill something out and I want to be notified when they do that, like a parent filling out a t-shirt order or signing up for CDEs or LDEs or something like that, I might want to be notified for that. I'm going to click on the three dots again and just go over these. I can make a copy of my quiz. I can print it if I would want. I can't remember if I've ever printed a Google form, but I have added collaborators. So if I want to collaborate on a data collection tool with colleagues, students, people outside my school building, I can do that by adding collaborators. If I want to check out what my form looks like, I'm going to click the eyeball and preview what it looks like. So this is what it would look like to the general public. Remember here's my password for the quiz, and I can't actually go on to the next. What was my password? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It was. All right. So, and then it would flip through each of my pages. Um, and go forward there. So this is where you don't want to necessarily have the questions be randomly shuffled, because it might shuffle this picture in with some other batch of questions. So I don't shuffle question order if I have pictures and videos included. So I'm going to go back to my form here and just kind of go through some of these others and make sure. I've clicked the gear here, and I want to just mention that I can look at how this might be presented to students. I can show a progress bar, which is kind of nice for students wondering, how long is this thing going to take? But I often don't shuffle question order, especially if I have pictures and video added in, because it would mix that stuff all up. And I don't want my students to submit another response. Now, I do want to look at this quiz portion here. If I want to make this a quiz, I can. I do not lock down on Chromebooks. I feel like it causes some heartache. You're definitely going to want to test that first. At the higher ed level, that is something I obviously am not going to do. We don't have school managed Chromebooks. So by default, if you flip over quizzes, it's going to release the grade. You might not want to do that. Otherwise, your 8th hour will definitely score better than your first hour. I'm going to click later after manual review. And do I want my students to see the correct answers? So if you're going to use this for review, you sure, why not? But if you're actually looking to use this as some kind of assessment, you might want to turn all this off and just leave point values on. When you do make this a quiz, then you will have the ability to actually determine what's the right answer. Right there, the answer key. So there you go. I think I have figured out every bell and whistle you might need to use in Google Forms. If you have any questions, let me know. There's a lot of help out there with Global GED or Google Training. Good luck.